So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If I'm right, we're going to Hadith number 35 of Imam Nawawi's 40 Hadith, which is on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. And Abu Hurairah is not new in terms of what we have been hearing from the Sahaba. More than about 5,000 hadith. Of course, we need not to repeat the status of Abu Hurairah among the Sahaba, and the fact that what is more important hearing about Abu Hurairah is for us to try our possible best, of course, to follow their guidance. I mean, their energy towards the deen, their energy towards ilm, and of course, all the other Sahaba. So he is telling us that Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, لا تحاسدوا ولا تناجشوا ولا تباغضوا ولا تدابروا ولا يبع بعضكم على بيع بعض. The hadith continues, right? So he said, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, do not be envious of one another. One want to take the hadith, everything, and then we'll come back to look at some few them, and we see how best we can move in that line. So the first thing about the hadith is very clear, and that is La tahasadu, do not envy one another. Wala tanajashu normally is in line with business, right? And do not artificially raise prices against one another. Wala tabaghadu, and do not turn your face on each other. Do not turn your face on each other. That is, of course, wala tadabaru, wala yabi' ba'dukum ala bay'i ba'd. And then do not undercut one another in business transactions. We shall come to these issues one after the other, inshallah. And slaves of Allah, brethren. So be ye slaves of Allah, all of you. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا, brothers, be slaves of Allah as brothers. Al-Muslim, Akhu Muslim, a Muslim is a brother to the Muslim. A Muslim, La yudlimu, he does not wrong him or does not oppress him. At the same time, Wala yakhdulu, he does not fail him when he needs him. Wala yakzibu, he does not lie to him or lie about him. Wala yahqiru, and he does not have to show contempt for him. So at-taqwa hauna, at-taqwa piety is here. وَيُشِيرُ إِلَى صَدْرِهِ, so he shows, point at his chest. ثلاث مرات, 3 times. التقوى هاهنا, التقوى هاهنا. بحسب مرئ, it is enough for a person to wrong his fellow brother or even human being, and يحكر أخاه مسلم, when he humiliates his brother Muslims, his brother Muslim, or his sister, of course, Muslimah. كل المسلم على المسلم حرام دمه وماله وعرضه. Adding the wealth and the dignity of a Muslim is sacred, and no Muslim should, of course, either harm or deny or causing mishap to another Muslim's either blood by killing him, or ma'aluhu, or his wealth by taking his wealth wrongly, or irdu, or his dignity, his honor. Okay, So what is very clear, I mean, the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith is giving us a multi-million advice. And I think the hadith about the fact that people will appear on the day of judgment having offered salah and zakah, having done a lot of good, but because they did not prevent themselves from these actions that the Prophet ﷺ is telling us, in fact, there's going to be settling of scores to the extent that such a person for a time will lose the goodness because he has wronged a lot of people with all this that the Prophet ﷺ has talked about. And the people have appeared to take from him or her those things that he or she did to them wrongly. So the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith is telling us specific things that we have to be mindful about, especially in our interpersonal relationship or in our relationships with others, Muslims and non-Muslims alike. So the first thing is, La tahasadu, do not envy one another. Do not envy one another. Each and every aspect of these advice can be taken through a commentary or interpretation, which will take quite an enormous time. Because when we talk about hasad, envy, it's a whole topic in itself. But we're just going to look a bit into some of them, because some of them we have looked at already. Envy has appeared in the hadith previously, and perhaps we would have looked at it extensively in those hadith. But suffices to say that envy, of course, are there in three things, right? Three things. One is allowed, one forbidden, and the other, of course, is left there. I mean, you don't get a reward, you don't get a sin. Don't get a reward, don't get a sin. That which is forbidden is what the Prophet ﷺ is telling us here. That is, أَمْ يَحْسُدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Do you envy people of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them from his bounties? That is wishing for the downfall of the other because what that person has, or you think that that person doesn't deserve, right, to have what he has. That is normally that aspect of envy that the hadith is talking about, which is haram, that we should not supposed to do that. Do not think that a person doesn't deserve to have what he has among the goodness of the dunya, of course, or even other aspects which is going to benefit from it in the hereafter. The fact that you think the person doesn't deserve, you have entered into the realm which is above you, the realm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's knowledge. And it is wrong. The worst part of hasad, of course, which is connected to bukhul, miserliness, is shuh, right? The person thinks like the other should even perish because he's not the one who is having it. So that is haram. That which is halal is what is known as ghibta. And in the hadith of Prophet ﷺ says, La hasadu illa fitnatain. That there is no envy except in two things. One of them, a person whom Allah gives knowledge, and the person is spreading the cause of Allah, and the one who Allah gives money, and the person spends in the cause of Allah. So you can wish that you get that, the knowledge or the wealth, and what the person is doing. So this one is scripture, and this one is liked so much. So here, you are not surprised, or you are not questioning, right? You are not questioning the authenticity of why that person should have it. But you wish to have that in order to also do the goodness that the person is doing. This one is liked, right? And this is normally a dua. May Allah give me just as he has given this person that he is doing for the sake of Allah, right? Then there is the other part which you don't get a sin and you don't get a reward. And that is perhaps you can see somebody in having a good car or living good, and you say, I wish I become like this person, having a nice car. You did not say that having a car to use in the cause of Allah or something like that. You just wish that you get like what the person is having. Here, you're not getting a sin and you're not getting what? A reward. So these are part of what scholars have mentioned concerning hasad, concerning envy. And we will find it in Jami al-Ulum wal Hikam by Ibn Rajab. Some of this explanation are put in there. Then we have Wala Tanajashu. Tanajush is normally in business, right? So artificially, sometimes inflating prices in order to get a lot of profit. So sometimes it comes along with hoarding, unnecessarily, right? Sometimes it also comes along in a weird way of business, right? Sometimes a person is selling maybe dates or maize or something, and he puts the good one on top and the bad one down. Sometimes a person is selling maybe milk or something, and they will mix it. I mean, to the extent that it becomes not the clear milk that people might see it to be, right? In all these avenues, sometimes it is about the person like beating the bottom of the weighing can, or what we normally say, adjusting the scale in such a way that the person is thinking for more profit at the expense of making it clearly how the business goes like, right? Sometimes it comes in along with what the Prophet says, al-bay'atani bil-khiyar ma lam yatafarraqa. If two people are, doing business transaction, right? A third person should not set in until the two, complete with whatever choices they have. So sometimes the person has connected with the seller, right? And so tries to confuse a buyer in a way which is just in line with getting a lot of profit at the expense of the buyer knowing exactly. So in any of these instances, the element of tanajush has entered in here, and we are not supposed to do that. I mean, your wealth is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a person is selling something, you should make all the hype, right? Anything that is about that thing should be shown, whether it has some shortcomings and what have you. Trying to hide any aspect of it and trying to inflate prices and all that, we are advised not to do that. وَلَا تَنَاجَشُوا وَلَا تَبَاغَضُوا, and do not hate one another or be annoyed, right, with one another beyond a certain limit. A Muslim, of course, if even somebody, brother Muslim or sister, does something, if even you are annoyed of the person, it should not be more than 3 days, like we told in a number of ahadith. يَلْتَقِيَانِ فَيُعْرَضُ هَذَا وَيُعْرَضُ هَذَا. They meet and then one will pass the other way and the other will pass the other way. The Prophet said that should not even happen more than 3 days. وَخَيْرُهُمَ الَّذِي يَبْدَأ بِالسَّلَامِ. The better among the two is the one who begins giving salam to the other. So one should not turn himself away from a brother, or should not hate the other brother, or should not be angry or annoyed with the other brother beyond the limits set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Sharia. A person can be annoyed. I mean, we are human beings, and reasonably we can be annoyed. But the servants of Allah, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, when they are annoyed, immediately, like we mentioned, and then they just mentioned the person who went to the Prophet ﷺ and then said the Prophet should cancel him. The Prophet ﷺ not talked about the issue about la taqdab, do not be angry, do not be angry. We explained a lot, and the scholars have explained a lot about that, which is still in connection with this, right? So that servant of Allah will immediately would want to control and restrain his anger. And then if even there is an element of annoyance, it doesn't go beyond 3 days, right? Try as possible best to live amicably with the other. Wala tadabaru, and do not turn yourself one away from it. And this happens in a number of ways. Sometimes a person will be talking to you, and then because you think like he doesn't have any status or position, you decide not to listen to him, right? In a way, so you turn either your chin or ولا تسائر خدك للناس ولا تمشي على الأرض مرها. Like Luqman al-Hakim was giving advice to his son, of course, and the whole of the world, right? And so you do not turn yourselves against one another or to one another, right? You should give full attention. If you are not listening to a person, you should let him know that because of A, B, C, D, or maybe I am busy or something, could you let us speak or talk another time? I mean, it's not an insult, but trying to just ignore the person and the person will be speaking. Sometimes it happens between married couples, sometimes it happens between brothers, it happens between sisters or brothers and sisters, it happens between business partners and what have you. It is something that we have to do away with, right? I think we talked about this when we were talking about at-tanajush. That is, do not intrude into business transaction of one another. So al-bay'atan bil-khiyar ma lam yatafarraqa. So if two people are having a business transaction, and if even you love the material, you want to say something about it, yours is to stay away until when they are done. If he is able to buy it, he buys it. If he's not able, then you can come in, right? And I said earlier on that sometimes there is a network of sellers and they try their possible best in order to entice a person to buy, when in actual fact, it is more of a deceit, right? It's more of a deceit because the person is having the business transaction with a seller. Immediately somebody else comes and tends to defend the product, right? Tends to talk more. Sometimes it defeats whatever view the buyer is having, right? And we are not told to do that. Or the worst part of it is that a person is having a business transaction and the other comes and he wants that product. And so he tries to find a way to intrude in order that he would buy it. I mean, this is haram. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. Sometimes this also comes in, let's go a bit back, comes in when there is a market, right? And by law, all of you are supposed to go to the market. And there are some people who have some ways and means, right, which turn the law. So people are at the market waiting for buyers. And there are some people who are hiding somewhere and they are not going to the market. I mean, if it is by law, right? But if it is a free market system that we all sell our things anywhere that we can, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So it is important that we look at what is the law that is pertaining at that environment, so we don't wrongfully, right, engage in any of these ways of business transaction. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا. Be servants of Allah, brothers. So al-Muslim akhu Muslim. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً. Here believers are brothers. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخَوَيْكُمْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. So you live like brothers. Here is a Muslim is a brother to his Muslim, and of course Muslim sister and what have you. So he said, وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Believing men and women are assistant and helpers to one another, right? Because they enjoy that is good, and then they forbid that which is evil. And very soon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant them his mercies. If a Muslim is a brother to a Muslim, la yazlimu, he doesn't wrong him or oppress him, right? And we are told by the Prophet that unsuru akhaka zaliman aw mazlum, help your brother who is an oppressor or who is oppressed, right? It is very clear, like the Sahaba said, if he is oppressed, it is easier to help him. What if he is the oppressor? He said, you have to deny him, right? And you have to save him from being an oppressor, prevent him from being an oppressor. And that is one of the very good helps that you would have offered him. In fact, al-zulm, being oppressor, is so big in the deen. One aspect of it is of course shirk, right? So a person engaging in shirk in order to affect the other. Of course, people who go to soothsayers, and there's those magical religions which are in the realm of the haram. Of course, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. Wronging each other by word of mouth or by that's of course our tongue, whether it's by our hands, our legs, any aspect of wrongdoing and being oppressor is wrong. Wala yakhzulu, and he doesn't make him subservient, right? He doesn't mock at him. He doesn't belittle him. Of course, Muslims should not belittle the other Muslim, either by word of mouth or through his or her actions. Wala yakzibu, and he doesn't belie about him. You don't tell somebody about another lies, right? Or don't tell even the other lies. And you do not molest him. So yakhzulu and yahkiru, they are similar, right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. At-taqwa hahuna, the Prophet said, piety is hahuna, is in the heart. وَيُشِيرُ إِلَى صَدْرِهِ, so he shows on his chest 3 times, right? That which is hidden in the breast of a person. Here we're talking so much about the heart. That is the beginning point of piety. That is the beginning point of piety before it affects the whole body. The whole body responds to that beginning point, right? If a person fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fears to do evil, you see it emanating from his heart. So the Prophet here is telling us the beginning, right? The abode of taqwa, then it transcends to the whole part of the body when the body responds to what is in the heart. And so he said, in mina sharri and yahkira akhahu Muslim. So it is enough for a person to harm his fellow Muslim or his brother Muslim when he belittles him, he humiliates him, he of course mock at him, he embarrasses him. This will sometimes happen in various levels, whether at the workplace, in the house, at the school, everywhere. We're supposed to keep the dignity of our fellow people, Muslims, keep the honor of our fellow Muslims. If even the person is a kid that you're going to talk to, you have to give the honor, right? Of course, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he got a dream to sacrifice his son, Ismail, you called Ismail, inni ara fil manami, anni azbahuka fanzur madha tara, giving opportunity even to the child, for the child to think and to figure out something, right, before what he thinks he want to do, right? So this is the way that we deal with each other. Give that respect, dignity, and honor to one another. Kullul Muslim ala al-Muslim haram. A Muslim to a Muslim is haram. What? Damuhu, his blood. Of course, the blood of a Muslim is haram. And this we are talking about killing, right? Taking the life of a person. And this, we've talked about it extensively. And Sheikh Abdul-Samad has even taken us through to that hadith about umirtu an uqatila an-nas hatta yashhadu an la ilaha illallah, al-hadith. There is about, killing and what are the levels. And the hadith, I think we have read before, where it talks about that la yahillu damu imri'in muslim illa bi ihday thalath. It is forbidden for a Muslim to kill the other except in one of these 3. And we talked about that extensively. And then I think we even went further to look at the ayah that talks about killing a Muslim unintentionally, and then killing even a non-Muslim intentionally, and the laws that pertain to that. So it is very important for us to say here that between us, servants of Allah, the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to judge us is about fiddima, it's about killing. And that is very serious. If you look at how people kill one another of late and some years even back, it's interesting and so fascinating that People are forgetting about the fact that they're going to meet Allah, and they are going to be questioned about every soul that either they killed directly or they helped in killing. So what is between us and Allah, Allah is going to judge us first, is as-salah. And what is between the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is about blood. وَمَالُهُ, it is also forbidden for a Muslim to take the wealth and the bounties of his brother wrongly. And this is very clear. And the last year is وَإِرْضُ, and is honor, right? Is honor and dignity. And that is why the hadith talks about whoever dies, right? Protecting his blood, damuhu, wa ma'luhu, his wealth, wa irduhu, and his honor dies as a martyr. So people want to take your wealth and you decide to fight back. People want to kill you, you decide to fight back. People want to molest you and bring you down, belittle you. You don't have to just sit down for them to say it if you have opportunity to defend yourself. And if you are defending yourself and in any of these instances, the person dies as a martyr. The person dies as somebody who is fighting in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is dead. So it is important, brothers and sisters, to see how the levels of this works. Very, very important. This means sometimes in terms of the error, in terms of the honor, sometimes you don't even hear when somebody is either barking at you or belittling you somewhere. But if Allah gives you the opportunity, like Yusuf alayhi salam, when he did not have illegal sexual intercourse or illicit sexual intercourse, and based on that, he was taken to the prison, right? The opportunity came when he was called to come and to interpret the dream, right? The first thing he told them is that go and then call the wife of the king, for the wife to testify that Anni lam akhunhu bil ghaib, right? I, Yusuf, do not deceive my Lord, right? Here it is the landlord, the husband of, that is Maluk Aziz, right? Aziz in Misr. So he did not wrong him. And so the opportunity came and he grabbed that opportunity in order to set his honor straight and clear before even any position that was to be given to him. Before people will be going about saying that this person has done this A, B, C, D. So if you have the opportunity, you don't have to sit down for people to just belittle you and to destroy your image and to just say anything when actually that is not the case. I mean, you need to defend yourself, right? You do the best that you can. Those who will listen, they will listen, right? Wallahu a'lam. So these advices given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a multi-million advice. Then each and every one of these advices, we shall take a lot of time looking at each one of them, Quran ayat and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like the extensive explanation that Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah, right, mentioned in his book. Unless here there is a suggestion or a question, I think that with this, it will be enough, inshallah, to talk about this hadith. Wallahu a'lam. Those who have any question or advice, inshallah, they can put forward, or even a contribution. Wallahu a'lam. Thank you very much. Now, I hope we are there.
Yes, Imam, we are here.
Yeah, so if there are contribution or question, inshallah, we can have that discussion, inshallah.
Well, please, do we have any question for Imam?
Or even contribution?
Yes, or contribution.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Sheikh.
Sheikh, thank you very much for the may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase you and everyone in understanding and iman. I just want to make an observation that it seems the hadith perhaps is speaking about the maqasid of Islam, the higher objective of legislation, which is about hifzul nafs and yani hifzul din and those daruriyat al-khams. So clearly, we need to protect our religion, which is the first thing and very important, and muqaddamun ala nafs wal mal wal ahl wal watan. So the protection of our religion, the protection of our lives, the protection of our dignity, the protection and all these things, you see that the hadith attempts to summarize the higher objective of Islam. Sometimes clearly the maqasid, the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam will not state the reason why certain acts of worship has been enshrined. But through the explanations that we have from our imams and other Islamic clerics, you realize that that is the higher objective of Islam, of the Sharia. The higher objective of the Sharia is to protect the human dignity. The higher objective of the Sharia is to protect lives. The higher objective of the Sharia is to protect one's religion. So these objectives that has been enshrined by Islam, in fact, makes Islam live with time. So Islam is always relevant with time and environment. And in a nutshell, that is what I want to put across. And therefore, wherever we find ourselves, usually there is an attempt by other schools of thought or by other civilizations to try and make Islam like an cake religion, but that's not the case. There is no religion that has protected the human life more than the religion of Allah. Because today, other civilization accuse Muslims and the religion of Allah. And because of ignorance, people are taking lives indiscriminately and associating it to Islam. So I have said, and I'll repeat saying this, that we need a session where we gradually need to clarify these barbaric acts that is anti-Islam, where people attempt to make it as part and possible, as part and parcel of Islam. So I think in a nutshell, this is what, I hope you can hear me. My line is not breaking. I'm scared that when I'm speaking at times, I have breakages, inshallah. Thank you very much. May Allah accept from all of us.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for reminding us of the maqasid al-Sharia, that is the highest objective of the Sharia, which of course, like you say, in that part of what is contained in the Hadith seeks to address some aspect of the maqasid. And it is good you bring it here because we are all generally learning. It's not all of us who perhaps might have heard or know about the maqasid. And of course, here we're talking about the primary objective or the aim of the Sharia. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us do this and don't do that. Scholars have deduced from especially those injunctions what the whole Sharia seeks to achieve, right? So they come across what these general objectives. And so any aspect of what we don't do this, don't do that, seeks to address an aspect of them. And just a quick reminder about those. We know of the protection of life, right? So the laws that is preventing us from killing one another, like he says, to here, a Muslim is haram, and his blood, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want us to live, right? And it's not only us, even to non-Muslims. So there is a protection of property, which we see in there. And then there's also protection of health. Perhaps health will not be directly found within the injunction, but implicitly, because if you are not turning against one another and you are giving attention to one another, I mean, psychologically and emotionally, the person feels fine, right? And of course, if a person is killing, there is an injury. Sometimes a person is not able to kill or successfully kills and then lives with injury. So implicitly, there is this one also found in there. There's protection of religion. Well, the set of a hadith that we read here, it is interesting. And I don't think we can have anyone specifically that is directly talking about the protection of religion. Unless, of course, we look at the general do's and the don'ts, right? Especially the don'ts that we have read here is in line with religion. But the question about a person leaving Islam and whether he should be killed or those who continue to move with hypocrisy and what have you within the Ummah, there are some of those ahadith and some ayat that are right directly, talking about this protection of religion. And there's also the protection of dignity, which the hadith also talks about. So generally, it is good, Jazakallah khair, for bringing in this element of the maqasid as the advice of the Prophet ﷺ tend to, address. Jazakallah khair. Naam.
I can see somebody's hand up. So the person can unmute and ask the question.
Yes, Tamwina, I think you can ask your question, please.
Imam, please, I wanted to find out when you were talking about, artificial inflation, and I got thinking about what if you are a business person, but you belong to an association. I know that sometimes associations will meet and decide that this is the price that we give, that we are going to sell our wares. And because you are part of that association, you know very well that this is too much. This is more than what people should be paying for the product, but you are part of the association and you have to be together with them. So in that case, what do you do as a Muslim?
Yeah, so this is generally about our conduct, right? Sorry. Sorry. This is generally about our conduct as Muslims. Just before I look at the question specifically, all what is mentioned here, right? There are elements that we find directly that are haram, and there are others that the level of haram in there depends on what level it is, right? So, well, a person will want to attain profit. And so if you increase your price in order to gain profit, sometimes what can be said is that, well, you have increased the price too much, but specifically, it's not like you are being given a sin until element of hoarding unnecessarily comes in when people need the commodity and then you decide to hold it because of the price, right? But if not, you are sort of preserving the product, and of course it's based on business. And so if it enters into a certain level that's within the Sharia that becomes haram, that is where finally it becomes haram. So if the inflation of that price, right, is not linked to this unnecessary hoarding, and then it's about the business and the type of profit that you want to have, what can be said is that, yes, it's not like directly you're having a sin, but you have to show a human face to those who are going to buy. Sometimes you increase the price and people are still able to buy, right? But increasing the price so much and making it difficult for people to buy, and you know that. And it is true that if you're also doing business and you increase the price and people are not buying, I think you would also reduce the price somehow. But by and large, if you're a Muslim, I would urge you the best way is to try to lead in that business that is halal. In Ghana, we know sometimes some of these challenges arise, and not only in Ghana. I mean, in countries where the countries are not Islamic countries, even the Islamic countries, they are also part of the global world. So sometimes when there is something like this in a group, it tends to be difficult. But knowing very well that if it enters into the haram, then it is haram, right? What we can say is that, well, the best thing is to move away from haram. But you know yourself, right? If it has not gotten into that level, you try your possible best to see what you can do. The other way I can think about it is that, well, you are part and you're also getting a profit, right? So see a way that you can, some of your resources can ease the burden of Muslims and the poor, right? Whether it is the same product or something like that. I mean, in order to make up for what you are forced, to be linked with because of that partnership and what have you. This is a bit complex, but I think this is what I can say about that. Wallahu a'lam. Now. If there are no other questions or contributions, then I think that we can call it a day, right?
Yes. But Imam, please, before we close, I think you went ahead of the Hadith a step, because we are actually on Hadith number 34. But because you were delivering on 35, I didn't prompt you. So inshallah, next week we would have the 34 to replace it.
What is the Hadith of 34?
The 34th Hadith talked about
last week. I think last week or one of the weeks we did two hadiths together.
Really?
Two hadiths together. So this hadith, I think we look at it last week. Last week, I think we look at two hadiths. So you can go back to listen to the audio or the video, and then you realize that we did two of the hadiths, and that is why.
Okay. Yes. I think somehow, yes.
Yes,
okay.
Imam, you're right. We did in a particular day. We did two.
Yes, so it was short, so we combined the two. That's true. Okay.
So that's why when we post the videos, it's in episode. So it doesn't matter whether they are this match with a number or not. When people watch it and follow, they will get all the. So that's fine.
That's right. Okay. So next week is 36, inshallah.
Yeah. So some hadith is very short. We can decide to add 2 or 3 of the hadiths, inshallah. I think it's yeah.
Yes.
And also, Imam, we are nearing the end of the Nawawi's 40th hadith. So our next episode, I hope you are working on something for us.
Yes, I think some of that is all of us are working it together, right? So we were suggesting some books, right? Minhaj Muslim, we're talking about Bulugh al-Maram, and some other hadith or some books that we might all suggest, so that inshallah will come out. Inshallah.
Okay, so we'll work on that on our usual WhatsApp platform, inshallah. So please, members here, if you have any suggestion or any recommendation, regarding our next, the next episode of this lesson of the Taleem series, please, you can WhatsApp it to either Imam or Amir, or you can WhatsApp it to me, whilst we still compile the suggestions coming. Because we are at number 36, and maybe in a month's time, inshallah, we'll complete it and then we'll start a new episode. So please, you can suggest something to make the program more educative, and then, get more people on board, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah reward all of you and also abundantly for support. And may Allah let us stand of good deeds here and on the day of judgment. هذا بالله توفيق. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.